tell me if we're playing live.
Here we go.
Hello, everybody. Sorry for the late start. A few technical difficulties getting going. This is Scott Stengel and my friend Mike Doe from the Melco Applications team. Today we're going to talk a little bit about lettering. So we're going to keep it a little bit basic, as we don't want to shut out the new customers, but also there's always a few tips that you're going to get, even if you're an advanced user, I think. Ways that you didn't know you could do stuff, and shortcuts, and even things you didn't know you could do. So we're going to start out, we're going to go through a bunch of different lettering examples. The first one is going to be the most simple, which is going to be creating lettering from scratch. So I made up a couple of fake jobs just to show you how you'd go through this. And everybody knows I love woodworking and building furniture, so of course this text is Millworks Lumber. Okay, so I can right click on my text tool, bringing up the object properties window, and first of all, the grading system for the alphabets. We've talked about this before, but just know that the newer alphabets have stars with them, where the older alphabets have yield signs right next to them. When you have your choice, try and always use the starred alphabets. They have you know, the ability to have the newer features like lock stitches, underlay, auto density. All that stuff didn't exist 30 years ago, and we have alphabets from that time still in the software, and people still call them for jobs, so we can't remove them. But I don't want to scare you away from the yield alphabets. Just know you can't push them as far as you can with the stars.
You know, Scott, I always wondered on this, so I'm gonna break it from that.
Please
so
do.
We talk about these alphabets being so old. What's wrong with being old? Because I got to tell you, I'm almost 50 years old, and I'm getting a little sensitive about this old thing. So give us a little bit more detail about why old alphabets might not be good these days.
I remember them processing alphabets, you know, when I was here in '85.
Wow. And
they used 8.5 inch, or what it was, 8.25 inch floppy disks. I mean, we're talking old. And they were a full like 100K, or I don't know how small they were, but it took like a whole floppy for an alphabet. But mainly because the computer power was so limited, as well as memory, like 1 megabyte of memory was $1,000. Now you get 8 gig for like 20 bucks, right? And you know, we were using DOS and not Windows, so it was more in its infancy. There was only one way to digitize a column, satin stitch. And it was a 5-point column, meaning that you told it the start and the end of that segment, but only a 1 point instead of 2 to define the width. So things got pretty chewed up. They used to have different specs, like, well, this alphabet should go from 0.3 to 6 inches. That's never going to happen, right?
0.3 to 6 inches.
Well, yeah, similar like that. Yeah, they were a little bit bizarre, and no expanded type stitching in them. But the problem is, here's another example. They had you didn't have the ability to turn lock stitches on, so they had to be digitized in each character.
Wow.
So if you had, well, you didn't have closest point, but you could see how it would be trouble. So if you tell me that this character has to go 6 inches, I have to put like 5 lock stitches per character.
Yep.
Oh, now we're running Diane's script, for example, at 0.35, and it has 5 locks per character. So that's what I mean. You have to stay more normal instead of really, really pushing the extremes.
Right. Well, and on top of that, correct me if I'm wrong, but machines in those days, max speed, maybe 400 or 500 stitches a minute?
I sewed for 10 solid years, day and night at 550.
Woo.
Because that's what they went.
Yeah, and on flats, you know, we should be averaging, in the Melco area, we should be averaging, what, between 1,000 to 1,200 stitches a minute?
You bet.
And on hats, somewhere between 900 to 1,100.
Unless you're doing puffs.
Unless we're doing puffs. So you could see how these older alphabets, it's not that they're out of date so much as they're just, the technology has given us so much more ability, and the digitizer has a lot more flexibility in what they do then.
Right. So you can think of kind of the difference in column 1 is where you segment everything out, and column 2 is where you kind of digitize like a fill. You tell it all of one side, all of the other, and then just the direction you want the stitches. But the software can keep that whole long stretch of a satin stitch nice and consistent in density, in compensation of width, and all that kind of stuff. So you're just going to get much, much better results.
Cool. Very cool.
All right. So we're going to start with this first text, jobs, pseudo job. And I am going to go for copperplate because I like that alphabet. So remember, we can search by either clicking here, making this blue, C-O-P-P-E-R, copperplate. I use the one here with the star, not the yield sign. This is an older one. And then below that is some true type fonts. Those are you want to stay away from those when you have regular alphabets of the same style. So we'll pick copperplate. I'll set the size, 0.45, I guess, just under a half an inch. And what else do we want to change here? Well, it's going to be straight text. Pretty good sized letters, so closest point is not going to be a good choice for there. But here's our horizontal stitch order. What we recommend is all jobs. If you pick center out, you're only going to get better results on flats, but it's going to be set up better for hats when the order comes back because they love your quality so much. All right, so we pick center out as digitized straight across. We set our size, then we're going to just move down the list. So some you don't have to mess with. I'm not touching spacing for now. I don't have borders. It's not a monogram. I'm not dealing with fabric styles. So I'll just move right to top stitching, 4-0. I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. So I will go with 3-8. I leave short stitches on. Remember, this is something you can just leave on all the time. Normally, you don't want short stitches on very small text, but you do need it on larger. We have it all set up where if your satin stitch is wider than 2 millimeters, you'll get short stitches, but as soon as it goes below, you won't. That's exactly what you want, so you don't have to touch it. All right, so we'll change the density, and then we're going to go down to underlay. I'll show you different ways in a couple of jobs here, but for this, we're going to hard code it. We're going to say, I want edge walk, 20 points. The border margin is going to be a little troublesome, and I'm going to show you that in a second. Work our way down the list. You know me, with pull compensation or pull offset is the one we want to use. I just hit everything with 1 or 2. Now remember, that number is doubled because it does it to each side.
So it's adding a point to either side of the column.
Right.
Okay.
So we usually say, you lose 10% of the width. So imagine if you had a little teeny 1/4 inch letter. Let's just make it simple and say that that's 10 points or 1 millimeter wide.
Right.
So if I add 1 and 1, that's 20% actually. So 10 to 20% is a good.
And so this the pull comp area, this is like if I want to make my lettering bolder, this would be where I would go, or beefier, or whatever the word is. Bolder is, I think, more of the typeset world. But
yeah, that's what people would normally know with true type fonts in Word and other programs like that.
Cool. By the way, I just want to do a shout out. Nate is not with us this week. Nate is over celebrating the royal birth. I don't know if that's why he went over there or not, but he's vacationing in the UK, so he's over there. And one last thing, this Friday is Mr. Stingle's birthday. I think he's going to be 27 this year.
Yes, I am.
So happy birthday, Scott Stingle. And a couple more shout-outs. If you're watching this and you're not a part of the For the Love of Melco Embroidery Machines group page, check it out. It's awesome. Let's see if I can remember names. Samantha and is it Rebecca? I want to say Rebecca.
You're right there.
Both of those guys run that page. It's not a Melco page. It's not ran by Melco. It's ran by users. Really cool page. And then one more shout out, and I think Scott will be hitting on this. Maybe he won't. I think you're talking about Melco University. Mm-hmm. But a shout out to Dan Sweeney here at Melco. Runs our service department, our customer service group, does an awesome job. His team does a phenomenal job, and they have a great FAQ, so check it out if you can. It's at melco-service.com, and then there's a little FAQ over to the left-hand side. So really good. One last thing, and I apologize, and I'll let Scott get back to it.
No, this is important.
The end of this month, we will be in Connecticut. So if you are in the Northeast, check out melco.com and the link for the information on locations. We're doing a showcase up in Hartford, and we'll post that link on the comments section. I will be up there. We'll be talking about some application stuff, so you'll have one of the application experts there to ask your questions. So make sure you check out that showcase. So Scott, take it away.
And then I'll be in Houston.
Yes. Oh, in Houston, ISS Houston.
Yeah, coming up.
I think it's like
next
the
month.
5th, 6th, 7th, something like that. So once again, there'll be a link on here for that. But yeah, come check out Scott. Get his autograph. I got his yesterday. He finally gave it to me. So after, how long have we worked together? Almost
14 years.
14 years. He finally gave me his autograph. So
right.
I am set.
Okay. All right, here we go. So pull offset, remember, is the one. Anything is better than nothing. But when you have your choice, use the pull offset, as we discussed before. Effects, advanced, we're not going to mess with that. Important right here, tie-off stitches. One heads up, these are unpopulated by the way I choose, but I just want everyone to know, if you're a newer Melco customer, when you go into these values, they're going to be populated by default. We started doing that with this last version just to help people out. So it's going to give you auto density, auto underlay, lock stitches will be turned on, all for you when you just start typing text, so you'll get better results if you're just learning. All right, so we turn our tie in and tie off. Those are our lock stitches, critical from stopping your lettering from falling out. These are the old values. What you'll see new and what we recommend, what we found works really good, is style 1, 7 points, but pick an odd number of stitches, 3. Style 1, 7 at 3, style 1 at 6, default is fine here. Okay, now I'm going to have my lock stitches turned on. So I will go up and I will start typing. We're going to say Millworks. Okay, and I will pull that here. It's a little bit challenging trying to stuff all this stuff on one screen, so sorry about that, but we'll make the best of it. Okay, so I've got all my properties set up, underlay, lock stitches, my density is set, everything is all good. So I want the word lumber here to go with it, and I could go through all that stuff again, or I can just use my favorite key, which is Control D, that's duplicate. Then I'm going to hold Alt while I bring this guy down.
So wait a second, you just blew my mind. If you click Control D while you have the text selected,
anything select, any element, selected? You bet, it duplicates.
So you don't have to do a copy paste. You could just do a Control D and it does what copy paste would do.
Yes, it's just where it goes inside your tree view or your project view.
Yeah.
Because duplicate will put it right after what you selected, right?
Okay.
And if you select the same thing and then go up to copy, but then deselect and click paste, it will put it at the end of your list.
Okay.
So there's good and bad times, especially with alphabets. I can't
I'm going to
tell
start
you.
using that.
I'm using that like all over.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
Control D. Don't forget that one.
I always like it. It was like the money kind of button, because if you do half of, let's say, a crest, yeah, and it's symmetrical, you just duplicate it, right? And you feel like, oh, I made all that money with just 2 keys. But you really spent a lot of time on the first half of it. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it just gives you more time to work on that first half. So.
Yeah. All right. So here we have duplicated it, but I want to change the text to lumber.
So I just want to repeat that, because we just had Leanne pop on, and, or I'm sorry, Lynn. Lynn popped on and she said, was that Control D or Control P? So it's D as in David or do,
duplicate.
Or duplicate. So it's a D, the letter D, not the letter P. It's kind of hard to get that across the webcam thing, I think. So.
Yeah, so it's like Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune.
What is that, a D or a P? Okay, so then you can see that just duplicate, I got all my properties without having to mess with it. So I'm going to choose to make this a little bit smaller, so we'll go with 0.4. And then I want to justify them on the left. So several ways to do this. I mean, if I could, you can see the outlines showing up. I could just line them up to the left like that. But if you have the feature, if I select two objects or more elements, I have justify left right here. Of course, it moved about a fraction, but you can see.
It's a little bit,
yeah. You bet. This is a faster way to do it than having to drag. Okay, so now a couple of problems. You see I have stitches. Where it's travel stitches or jump stitches, I should say, where it's not sewing. I want to trim that. And so first of all, let me see, we'll center the design just to give a starting point. All right, and let's see how we're doing as far as fitting in the hoop. So remember, this key right here displays the hoop. This is a 15 centimeter or 5.85. It's a little bit big. I could go back into my object properties and change the text and the width and all that kind of stuff. But another way to do it, if you're not going too drastic, is to just change it down here. So instead of 4.6, maybe I'll go 4.25. So I'm just shifting it a little bit. Hey, now it works in there. I didn't change much and all that, right? So, all right. So the next thing is, we've talked about this very much. When I look across here, all these letters are the same height, which would look okay on the screen. However, we know that through the push and pull, that any satin stitch that's stitching this direction vertically is going to push on the top, and it's going to shrink on the sides. Well, we took care of the shrinkage by adding the pull offset, but we need to take care of the height, or else these letters are going to appear taller than the O and the R and the S, because remember, this is stitching up and down. I did a big section on a Facebook Live about how to do
all upon the post you put there. Yeah. And then when you get through this, I've got two questions for you, but when you're ready. So.
Okay, so a fast way to do this is, in this case, I have a lot more vertical type letters, so I'm just going to go in and work on the O, the R, and the S. So I can click to select an individual letter, and then I can scale it. If I want to make the whole thing bigger, I'd go this direction. But since it's just a small amount, I'm just going to move it up a little bit. Now what I'm doing here is I'm going twice the amount, because I'm going to then move the letter down a little bit, because the compensation has to happen at the top and the bottom. So with the letter selected, I enlarged it double. I hold Control, and now this will come off the line, so I can shrink it half below, half above. All right, here we go with the R. This one is it's going to push down at the bottom, but it's going to shrink at the top. So I'm just going to drag it same way, but only half the amount, or single instead of double. Move over to the S, one more amount. Do double here, grab it with Control, shrink it down and move it. Okay, so this shows you now that the O and the R and the S are taller, and when it comes out on the fabric, they should all be even. All right, questions?
Cool. Questions. Let me go back to them. First one, let's see here. Where are we at? The first one we had is from Susan. Susan writes in, says, for the alignment, does it make a difference as to which element is selected first?
Oh, yes, it does. It aligns off of the first. I'm sorry, I don't have this memorized, but it's right in the manual.
So I will find, what I'll do is I'll find it.
Yeah, the one it aligns everything to the first one.
I think it's the first one becomes like the primary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. So the first one becomes the primary, and then the subsequent ones. Thank you. Tongue twister. Subsequent ones do, but I will put a link for that one. And the next one is from our good friend Jason Crawford.
Oh yeah, hey,
Jason writes in a question about sewing the text as digitized. In a previous video, I thought it was recommended to do closest point.
So that totally depends on the size. This is kind of so big that closest point, it would be too far to travel the thread, right?
Yeah.
So I basically use closest point if you're almost 1/4 of an inch, right? It also depends how tight. If you're willing to move your letters closer together, you'll be able to go bigger. But in a nutshell, anything above 0.35, I'm going to go as digitized. And small text, it's really important you do closest point because you don't want the machine to trim every single letter. The machine has to get a rhythm. You're asking it to trim every 150 stitches and add 2 or 3 tie-ins, 2 or 3 tie-offs to this.
So what's the definition of small lettering? Quarter of an inch and below?
Yeah, I would say 0.3 and
0.3
down, but
inches?
man, I lived in 0.25 land forever.
So once again, anything 0.3 inch and lower is what Scott is calling small lettering.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's probably where you want to use that closest point. That's where you want to have that trim if greater than probably set to 0.1. And 0.1, I'm sorry, set it to 10.
10 points.
10 points, yep. So 10 points, so 1 millimeter. Anything less than that, we don't want to trim. But these large letters, the closest point really doesn't make sense then, right?
No, it's actually going to work against you because when I digitize fonts, where we exit each character and all that makes a difference on if you see gaps where the satin stitches meet at 90 degrees and stuff like that. So if you're using closest point but yet you're trimming every single letter, you're letting the computer resequence the letters for kind of no reason.
Yeah, I've seen designs that are maybe 8,000 stitches that should take no more than about 10 to 11 minutes to sew. They have so many trims in them that it takes 25 minutes to sew the dang design.
I know. Some people say, yeah, I look at the back and it's like fur. That's all the tail. Please, you got to keep the trims down to a minimum.
Jason, I hope that answers your question, bud.
Okay, so there is help, though. I want to re-emphasize this, that let me go to the melcouniversity.com is your friend.
Yes, it is.
And so right here on the main page we have the media tab. The media tab takes you to, these are links from YouTube actually. Here's lettering like we're talking about today. So this is for anybody at any time, no logins, expirations, passwords. Just go and watch, hit pause, play on your own, hit rewind. A lot of cool stuff you can do. But you can see how lettering is split out into all these smaller educational sections instead of just here's an hour on lettering. So you can just jump in and learn about spacing on letters if you want without having to do the whole thing. Tell your employees to use this and new employees, and really, really, really good resource. Okay, so we'll put that guy back over.
Cool. Yeah, so, those videos are great.
Oh man, and we're adding to the Facebook Live all the time, so hopefully there's a lot of information for you guys.
Awesome.
Okay, so a little bit more we can do with this. So let's spice it up a little bit. I'll just turn off the hoop. So I want different colors within the text. I don't have to make 2 text strings, one with an M and one with the ILL works, right? All I need to do is I can highlight one character with the X in the center and then just click on a different color, right? So I'm adding color changes within a text string like this. All right. So that's one way to do it. Another way we can add colors is as we're typing. So I'll just do something simple here. We'll go MELC, and then I just need to click on a different color, and I can type in the O. And you can see I'm doing multicolored text within one string.
Wow.
All right, so that's adding it later. Here's adding it as you go. You can do it with monograms and their borders. You can just click on the X of a monogram border, change it to another color if you want a two-color monogram, stuff like that. Okay.
We do have another question before we move on, because I think this is still keeping us in this realm. Susan writes in, when increasing the size of the O, R, and the S,
yes,
how did you determine the amount to increase? Sorry if you covered this and I missed it, but I don't think we covered it. So I probably jumped in and got you thinking about something else. So
you just get used to how far movements are on the screen when you set it at full time every day. So I just know. You know
so it's an right?
It is.
How much does an
so if we want to get scientific,
I mean, really,
about this,
it's probably the material. You're probably test sewing, and you're probably determining how much you need to increase that by how much the material is moving. Is that
true? Exactly, and it's going to change for different fabrics. Also, how much pull offset I use is going to change that, right? Because the fatter I make the O, the less I have to move the W down, or vice versa, whatever, you see. So so make all your W's Mike Doe size and you won't have a problem. Yeah. Smaller letters, let's say 1/4 inch letters, say about 1 stitch. 4 points is what I compensate that kind of stuff. It gets a little bit more the larger the letters go. So I guess, Susan, you kind of got to try what works. You can turn your grid on and go 4 points or 5 points, sew it out and see if that works for you. You can change the resolution of the grid to get everything in and all that. Cool. Now, just be aware, micro block and the mini text, since that stays at such a small given value, it is compensated in height. So you should just be able to run micro block, let's say, add a little bit of pull comp to it, center out, and everything is compensated. It should be looking bad on the screen and great on the fabric, which is all that we care about. Yeah, how many times have we heard, and I've actually fallen for it too, is we see it on the screen, and Scott is my expert digitizer that I lean on hard, and sometimes he'll send me stuff and I'm like, Scott, were you drunk when you digitized this? Because the lettering is going like this. If you drove that way, a cop would pull you over for sure. But then I sew it out, and it's like, okay, I got to remember the reason that I trust the man. So what Scott just said is very valid. If you see it on screen and it's wavy, sew it out before you question your digitizer. Or if you did it and you put it in there and you're like, wow, did I do that right? Trust yourself and sew it out. Test sew this until you get comfortable with how that pull compensation works. And then you'll be good. But that's kind of one of those things that, like Scott was saying, you'll learn what an is. We try to put how much is on here. So you'll be able to do an and know what that is. So 4 points. About 4 to 5 points is an Yes, exactly. Half a millimeter. I've had even people in class, brand new, and talking to each other, who does the digitizing, whatever. And you should have seen the last one that they did. They didn't even care enough to make the letters the same height, and they're just learning. So understand, we go to great pains to make sure they're not at that. We have some really, really good people watching today. So thank you very much for posting your comments. Bernadine, I hope I'm saying this right. Bernadine writes in, by adding in the color change within the word after, let's see here. By adding in the color change within the word after, will that change the order of the stitch when it's sent to the machine? So I think she's talking about, like, let's say Melco. Melco would be in 2 colors, right? Well, see, this is kind of weird, and it's a great question. I set center out. Remember?
Oh, okay, yep.
And so that's why this is the word here. So it shows it's gonna, however the normal order would go is the answer to that, right? So center out is going to do LCO, so it's going to do LC, then up color change, so it has to change. So then it knows to change back when it does the EM.
So when it comes to the machine side, Bernadine, what we're saying is Melco would show up in the machine side as 3 color changes.
Yes.
Blue first, then green, then back to blue. So yes, it will change that. Great question, Bernadine. Keep them coming in, and I hope I pronounced your name right. So.
And if I just did left to right text, then the O would go at the end, so there would be just 2 colors.
Oh, okay. So yeah, left to right. But we always love center out, right? So
we do. All right. So another thing you can do here that's kind of cool is you can change text. You can change fonts within a text string. I don't normally do this, but hey, you know, maybe you have a script font where you like the capital B,
yep,
but you're okay with the lowercase letters, or you like them more from a different font.
Right.
You can actually select and change text after the fact. Here again, highlight it like we did color changes.
Yeah.
I can just go up here and pick, I'll try something real weird, athletic swoosh.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
So you see within one text string, we changed
I don't know that I like that colors, but it shows that you can do it, right?
Yes, so. Right. And just know, right, it can go big in size and do all this kind of stuff there. So know that you can change fonts within a given text string.
Cool.
Okay, so next is going to be adding lettering to existing designs. So I'll close this guy off. Save there. Start a new window. And I'm going to open. We'll just do a little bit of emphasis here on our fire first responders and all.
Oh, is that what that is? I thought it was some kind of. It looked like an X-Men. See the cross, and it's got little eyes up above it.
I did it for one of the employees here.
It's like a superhero or whatever.
Yeah,
they are superheroes, though. Thank you very much. If you're a first responder, you guys have helped me out a couple times, so I appreciate you guys.
Okay, so if your grid crosshairs are not on, what we're going to do is we need to add circle text to an existing logo. So this happens to be wireframe. So I bring the logo in first. It's already centered. I have my crosshairs on. And now, what radius would I pick for this?
I have no clue.
Well, I could try 1,000,000 until I got it right. Or 2 ways. First way I'll show you is I use the ruler. So I grab the ruler, I put it in the center, click and hold, and then I know it's about almost an inch to the edge, but I want a little bit of spacing. So we might go 1.03, 1.05, something like that.
Okay.
And that's going to leave a little bit of a gap around there. Excuse me. Okay, so for this job, we're going to go back. We're going to right-click on our text, and we'll pick athletic, remember?
Yep.
All you have to do is type and it'll find it. So we're going to do athletic block. It's going to be a little bit smaller, so let's try.
How do we know what size? I know you mentioned this earlier. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. How do we know on that alphabet what sizes?
Oh yeah, I didn't show you. That's right. So we have just excellent flyouts now. So they'll show you all the characters that the font has in it, as well as the suggested min and max. So what? This says 1/2 inch minimum. I just put in 0.3.
What?
No.
You're breaking the rules on Facebook? Come on.
So let me explain just quickly about this. Any alphabet will go any size.
Okay.
But we make alphabets, we digitize them differently, kind of based on a size range. Small letters, it's like hold your breath, get in, get out with as few stitches as possible, because an extra couple stitches could clog a miter or fill in a P or an O or something like that.
So it starts breaking all the rules of what we talked about on a minimum stitch length, is why we wouldn't want to go below the suggested.
Exactly. We measure the minimum, like the thinnest character, how small can it go and still be 12 points? That's sort of our criteria about that. Okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to nail this with pull offset when I'm done, so I can go below the minimum because I'm fattening up the stitches, right?
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it's just a suggested, but any alphabet will go any size. Just try and use the bigger ones for bigger letters and the micro for that.
And always test.
Always test. Yeah, go live on the garment. 0.3. Okay. This is a pretty thin alphabet, so I'm gonna stretch the letters to 110%.
Okay.
This is just gonna take each letter and make it wider, so stuff doesn't get closed in because I'm shrinking the size.
All right.
All right, so we set all that up.
But we don't have any text yet.
We don't have any text yet.
Okay.
So I'm going to take, remember, center out's what we want.
Yep.
And also, this one is 0.3. So we're going to do what we said, closest point connection.
Okay.
Keep the trims to a minimum.
Yep.
All right. And then, yeah, sure, if we want to type in our text, we can do that. Golden Fire Department. All right, so we got all our text on the screen. You can see that it's a little bit wider, which is good. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to arch it. So we changed the closest point. Let's actually, I'll just set up my properties and then we'll turn it to an arc. So for spacing, we're going to leave that because we don't know what we're going to get on the arc. I moved to top stitching. Whoa, that's way too low. So I'm going to switch this. 3940. I don't know. I like 38.
38? Okay.
Yeah, it works good. Then we'll go down to underlay. Many of you have auto underlay by default. We'll try that for this one. Okay. Instead of hardwiring it. Okay, we set that all up, and now let's take and arc the text. So I go back to letters. I'm gonna pick a arc. So the line type you're changing to arc is what we just did. Right, okay. And then remember we measured with our ruler. So I remember 1.05 yep. would work pretty good, and everything stays the same. All right, and let me get this off of the screen so you can better see. It's pretty crowded with one screen. Whoa. I did 1.5
instead of 1.05.
0.5.
There we go.
All right.
Oh, how cool is that?
Okay. And also know that if you want to do it graphically, you can do it with this bar. I'll show you that on the next job. All right, and then I just need to, of course, center this so that I have the same gap. Remember, I love the arrow keys for precise movements. So I hold shift and then I hit the arrow keys till I get this set up. That is so cool. Like so all you did is you measured to get that arc radius right. You measured from the center of the design out, and that gave you your arc radius, because that looks beautiful. I've done it before. This is the God's honest truth. I'm sitting there weighing in the arc radius, not from what you've got, over on the radius in the lettering properties, but the handle over on the screen, trying to get it just right, and it never looks right. Right there, it's like perfect. Yeah, graphically, it's hard to get right there, huh? It is. You can also move side to side, which kind of changes things and all. So nice. I'm still a fan of plugging in the numbers. Cool. And that's how you get the number. I never knew that. That's a great one. And also we've got that, I'll find it via Facebook earlier. We had done a radius chart. Oh, yes. That you could put on there. Oh, that thing is awesome. So I'll find that and link it to this guy as well. People that are used to it, they're like, where is it? Right? Yeah, where is it? So yeah, we recreated it. Cool. Okay, so if I look at this, hey, my letters are a little bit too far apart, so I'm going to spacing. Two ways to do this. I can hit auto kern and see where I am, or I can use horizontal spacing. So if I don't use auto kern, this is my go-to, minus 0.02 inches. That just seems to be the right amount to pull things in. if an alphabet is a little bit too spaced out, that's kind of what I will use.
That looks great, though.
Doesn't it? Okay, so there's Golden Fire, but it still suffers from a couple problems, right? There's a big gap in here.
Yep. Yeah, that P moved away from the A.
Yeah, too far and stuff. So different ways to fix it. Since I'm doing an arc, I try and keep away from grabbing, say, you know, all these letters right here and moving them.
Whoa. How did you do that, Scott?
Oh, magic. I first just clicked on one X, and I'm doing a range, so shift, like shift click selects a range.
In between there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Or I could hold control and click, 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 but it's faster.
Okay. So shift click, so you click first one, then hold shift button down.
And click on the last one in the range, actually, and it selected all that.
Wow.
What you have to remember is if you're doing this, you don't grab on the X or else it'll go back to selecting just that letter. So click in some place in the box but not on there and move it. Problem exists is if I push this up tighter, now my arc is not the bottom. Yeah, right.
Yep.
So a better way, I didn't move this, so I'm just going to go back, is to go to the lettering tab, and we have right here a bunch of great tools.
Yep.
So I need to tighten up the space, so I'm going to the P and I'm going to hit minus. I think this will take 2 of them.
Oh, wow.
You see how I kept it close, but this is still all on the line. One thing that's going to look weird, and this is funny because it's a good example, the T is a full letter. Imagine it makes a box around the letter, and the G is cut off just by the nature of the font.
So it looks like it's a hair bit lower.
It will look, like it. So sometimes there's a visual compensation that you need to do too by just pushing letters a little bit closer or whatever till you get them spaced out.
Got it.
The other thing I'm seeing here is I really am not loving
There's not much space.
Yeah, between the words. So here we use default spacing.
So now we're in spacing under object properties.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. And then here, if I do 60, ooh, that's kind of drastic. Another go-to forever is 45. I don't know why 45 just.
Okay, so you uncheck the use default, and now you're changing 45 is what you like there.
Yeah, because the default, if you uncheck it, is set at 60.
Okay. And that's kind of nice because it didn't mess with the spacing that you had done for the P to the E. It's just for each word spacing is all that's done. Okay, cool.
Exactly. So still a little bit too far. We can't carry these distances without trimming. So I'm going to the tie off tab, tie in, tie off tab, and I'm going to shorten this to, we'll try 2 millimeters. Hit apply. And yep, it took it away from these letters, took away from here. Let's just say an example right here. Oh, this looks bad. I want it to trim here, but I don't really want to change all my values and all that kind of stuff. So I can go to my letters. We talked about the individual spacing tools. There's also a trim tool. So I could go to the P. It's got the double minus spaces. Also put a trim in. When I hit apply, you see it goes away there. So it's a way to individually trim between letters without having to change all of your values.
Cool.
Alrighty, now we're going to go a little review. So remember, I set up all my underlay and tie stitches and pull comp and all that kind of stuff here. What's the magic key?
The magic key is Control or Shift D, right?
Control D.
D as in David. Yes. So Control D.
Duplicate.
Duplicate.
All right. Now what I'm going to do to this is change it to established. I'll do all caps. EST period. And 1879 is when Golden. I live in Golden, Colorado, where Coors is. It's the suburbs outside by the foothills.
Beautiful.
And I've been there forever. Yeah. All right. So we leave everything except for we're going to change it to a straight but horizontal closest point. Everything is all good, and we put it right there. Then hold Alt while I drag to keep it centered, and you can see that was really pretty easy for adding another text string, but keeping all my values and all that kind of stuff. Then, of course, I could just, go in and change maybe to red to make it look fire.
So you have it selected, okay. Yeah.
On and on like that.
So I got a question for you on some text, and I'm sure that others ask this question. Why mess with underlay? And you know, why not just take and add more density to the design and actually give me the coverage I need, right?
Yeah, well, no.
So no,
it's a loaded question.
Maybe
if we want to put some stitches down first, and underlay serves two purposes. The most common is to tack the material to your backing so that it doesn't slide, your material doesn't slide around while you're doing the top stitching.
Gotcha.
If you just pound the top stitching, you're kind of not addressing that. And the second reason for underlay would be to build loft. Oh, I have this towel, I need, you know, double zigzag and stuff.
To get it to sit up on top.
Yeah, like a bridge from the fabric to the top stitching. So yeah, underlay is critical. That's why we defaulted it to on.
Okay.
You'll get at least good results if you just leave it, right? I mean, we can't set one value to work on all fabrics, so that's why the fabric styles is in there. But
so going along with what Scott had to say is, if you're seeing a lot of puckering on your material, yes, it could be hooping, yes, it could be the backing type. It also could be that you just have way too much density on your top stitch. If you would back off on that density on the top stitch and lay that foundation of underlay below, you'll see that it'll actually end up having much less stitches in the design, look a whole lot better and feel better to the end user. So check out not having too much density. Once again, go back and watch our archives because I think we talk about where underlays are useful and things like that.
Yeah,
so
which types? And
sorry, I keep just interrupting you.
No, it's awesome. Okay, so that's going to be it for this one.
Okay.
We'll save it. And the next one, we get a lot of questions on this, expanded designs. So I got a design from somebody else, took a stock design, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to open an expanded design. So, right?
Yeah.
Now remember, certain expanded formats, most of them, they don't hold color information. So there's no way this file can tell us what the digitizer expected the colors to be sewn in or anything like that. But good quality expanded designs are going to be good quality on your machine. There's no, oh, this is so much better because it's OFM than expanded, right?
Right.
You get a lot more flexibility in editing and all, so still always go for the OFM file, but know that expanded can give you good quality. Okay, so we got this, either we ripped apart another logo and ended up with parts or whatever, but it's a fire logo. So, as we can see, these black lines here are a problem. Those are called jump stitches. That's the way the machine moves from one place to another without stitching. Usually it's going to trim and do that all. But if I try to center this design, you can see it goes way out of whack because it always keeps these stitches, you know, in reference to the centering. So I need to get rid of them. So I'm going to go back to undo. So how do we do that? Well, I can zoom in, I can left click to select them, and then remember up here we have expanded editing mode. Now when I zoom in, I can see the actual needle penetrations as they're on there. I could drag and then hit delete. That's going to do it. It's still going to leave a couple of jump stitches in here, which our machine filters out when you load it. But let's just get rid of them. So here we have our stitches tab at the bottom, and I can go find exactly those stitches and get rid of them. So let me show you this part here. We'll click on an expanded stitch, and now this is really hard with the screen being so small. You can see that these are all jump stitches, right?
Yep.
So if I click on the first jump, and then I go and I click on the last jump, I can delete them.
Boom, they're gone.
So you can do it, you know, by drag selecting. It's just harder to drag select, you know, weird areas. Now, also you can use the custom select tool, which is the star, and, you know, draw around the shape and do that. But, okay, so here we go back to the stitch. So I got rid of it. Now here, We went back and we centered it. Now let's just colorize it here real quick. So we'll make this maybe yellow. We've got a border which would be something like gray. This would be black. And then have the fire helmet, which would be purple, red, something like that. We go back to, actually this is going to be white because it'd be as bad. On the front of the hat and then back to black.
Like black. Okay.
Sure. So something similar like that.
Yep.
Then we have another issue right here, right, which is the jump stitches showing.
Oh, yeah.
So let me do it real fast for you. I'll actually turn off all the colors, turn on just this color, and then I'll go to, I'll select it and go to my stitches tab, right, and then we can see with the expanded editing mode, I have my 2 stitches here. So I just drag, boom, done. All right. Go back to project and turn on all my colors, and now those stitches are gone. Okay. So another way is on screen, as we've done in the past. We're going to do foothills. Let me see. So foothills fire. Okay, and for this one we'll use a different font, so I'll drag this over. We're going to search for Geo. This geometric slab is one I really enjoyed digitizing and I enjoy using. A little bit smaller, so 0.3 right here. Pretty thin font, so we're going 120 on the letter width. Whoops. Okay, so we have our letters there. We increase the width. For this, we're going to go closest point. Center out is always a good choice. Hit apply, work our way down. So for our underlay, or our top stitching, a little bit less on there. For underlay, we'll just grab auto. Leave that set. And we want to work our way down the list. We'll try 1 on the pull offset. Go to the all-important tie stitches, turn them on. Remember 7 and 3.
And is there a way, Scott, that we can take and default some of this so that we don't have to set that every single time?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Always ahead of your time. No. Yeah, this is so. The way we do it is you start Design Shop, you open a new window so you're not polluting it with anything from another design. You make whatever property changes you want for your desired defaults, and then right here we have a floppy disk icon, save defaults, either for the current, in case you want to change your defaults for digitizing further in the design, but permanently is what you would do.
Okay.
And then when I open a new window, it has all that stuff on.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's a great feature to use, guys, so that Scott's walking you through each time right now so that you remember what those properties are.
Mm-hmm.
But in real life, we want to make this as fast as possible and not to miss something. So the default, saving those defaults is a great way to go. Once you figure out your sweet spot, what you like, and everybody's got a different like, save those defaults like Scott just showed us.
Yeah, and if you have multiple different defaults you like, for, you know, that's where this fabric styles come in. It comes in. We've talked about that.
Cool, yeah. Check that out in the archives.
Okay, so we set the size and all that kind of stuff. We set the thickness. And so here, I'll drag this guy off to the side. So here is the graphic. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Noble writes in, what program is he using to digitize? So Scott is actually using Melco's Design Shop, and he's using the Pro Plus level at this moment.
Right, version 10 is the current version that's out.
Good question, Noble. Keep them coming in.
All right, so if I go to my letters here and I pick an arc, And for this one, we'll just leave it alone. I'll show you how to do it graphically. So this is too big, so I want to zoom out. But as I move this guy up, you could see my radius is changing, right? So that's another way to do it. And what I ended up with was just over an inch. So to make it kind of consistent, I'm just going to shrink this to an inch. So closest point, center out, we got our size, we have our width, underlay, lock stitches, all that kind of stuff is turned on. But the letters are too far apart. So we talked about in spacing, we have auto kern, we could turn on, or I can set the horizontal spacing myself. And the words, so I guess. I'm going to change this to 8. And I will change to my lovely 45 I always go for. Now we're setting it up pretty good.
That is looking great. I really like that cheater on using the ruler to measure up halfway through the design. That's cool.
No doubt. Okay, and we have everything set up. Except for we probably want to shorten the distance to get more ties, so let's try 20. I don't want too long of thread trailing. That's okay. I still don't like the one after the I, so I'm going to go up to here and put a minus space in there. Or let's see how we do. Yeah, that's okay. I'm probably... we're long on time here, I know. So
no. And while you're doing that,
please,
I just want to throw out a question. That this is a good one. Talking about jump stitches, if someone, I think is if someone has a Design Shop Pro Plus V10, and I'm kind of summarizing this question. When that OFM is opened up in an older version of Design Shop, will it open up? Will there be jump stitches in that design, or will it be a native OFM?
No, there would be jump stitches. So what we do is, since the newer software created this design, now older software is trying to run it. It doesn't know the new
all
stuff we put in.
Yeah.
So rather than most software will just say, hey, sorry, it's created with a newer version, go back and get the new version, or talk to your digitizer or something like that. We're able to extract the expanded stitches out as well as the color information and notes, so that you can run the order and you're going to get as good a quality as the digitizer expects you to get.
You just won't have the wireframe.
And so you're going to get jump stitches instead. But actually, you've got the wireframe design, so as soon as you would upgrade, you would have all the wireframe stuff in the file.
And that came in from Just Ship. I hope I'm saying that right. Just Ship. I hope that answered your question.
Okay, so we set everything up. Now, again, to repeat, Control D for duplicate, right? And now I will go to my letters, and I'll change this to T-A-R-T and to department. And I want this to be, well, let me see what we could do. Yeah, we could do, this is we did Control duplicate, but it's going to be a bottom arc. So all I have to do here is change my reference angle from 0, which is a top arc, to 180, which is a bottom arc. I also want counterclockwise, or the letters are going to spell backwards. Right? So here, it keeps the same radius, keeps the same everything. Once I center it out, you see, I will be in good shape.
And Just Ship was Jason, I guess. I apologize, but it showed up as Just Ship. So sorry about that, Jason.
All right. So this shows you how easy it was to create the bottom text. A lot of times you need to add a little spacing because it tends to smash the tops of the letters together, just the way it works. So you could,
that looks so good.
You would have a little more spacing down here than you would kind of up there. All right. So also, if I look at it, it looks like it's a little tighter on this side. There's a little less space than there is over here.
Yep.
So I remember I centered it already, so it's in exact center, but visual center can be more important sometimes than exact center.
Maybe because of the axe being on that left side is what's throwing us off.
The ladder is thicker.
Yep.
So all I need to do is grab the logo, which is going to be through right here, and then I would use my shift and the arrow, move it a little bit, until I get it over. Yeah, you know, that's pretty good. So anyway, center the design before you sew it out, and that's how to add text to expanded designs.
Cool. One more question. We're going to go a little bit late today, so I apologize, guys. This is good stuff. Mickey is asking, can he explain the font find again slower? So I think what he's asking is
how to search.
Yeah, how to do a search. Yep.
Okay. No.
Scott's being a smart aleck today.
No. Yeah. So there's two ways you can do this. With it, you can blue it out and then type in block, let's say, whatever you know, it's going to take you to the closest it can find. The more text you type in, the more refined your list is. So one way to do it is to make it all blue and then start typing. The other way is to just click on this arrow, and you can type from there also. So
that works.
Two ways, right?
Cool.
Does that hopefully explain it pretty good?
Yeah, I think that got it. Mickey, let us know if that works for you. And so where are we at, Scott? I keep interrupting you.
No, we're in great shape. We're just finishing up. Two more things. So I'm going to close this down so I think everybody understands that part. Any design can be a mixture of expanded and wireframe and all sorts of stuff together. So one more advanced tip for some people might not know out there. So I have text. Let's just say we have Melco. And this thing is like, 3-inch text. So we're talking gigantic, 13, 14 inches wide.
Okay.
Well, this one is not so bad, but all of us know with serif letters and all, they're just not meant to be sewn in the same path that a satin stitch would sew. It's just going to give overlaps and a lot of density in certain areas.
Either that or you see those jackets. I haven't seen them lately, but back in the late 90s, they were awful. The nylon jackets that someone would do like an inch wide columns.
Yes.
And then the kid would lean up against a brick wall and then it looked like it was just awful. Yeah. So don't be that person that does long columns on the back of the jacket. Just
and even if he didn't lean up against the brick wall, just the puckering that would have such thin fabrics on there. So here's a trick. When you can just run any alphabet text that you want, provided your level supports it. And then remember we have change element type. So if I hold Control and I click on the fill tool, I've changed all this to flat fill. Then another thing I can do, remember Shift is add. So I can click on add to a border, a single line around it, change the color of the border. I can, fatten it up, do whatever I want, but add underlay, change the order. Anyway, this is a very quick way to take alphabet text and make jacket back size lettering.
Nice.
Okay, and then one more. So
one more?
Well,
okay, cool. Yeah, this is a great one. So what we want to talk about is there's been some confusion in our world, and so we just want to clarify the confusion. There is a lot of designs, a lot of great designs out there that are alphabet lettering. And so when we say designs, what we mean is when Scott opened this is an individual design. Like if we were opening up a
file.
Yeah, so this is the A file. And if we wanted to add B, C, D, we would have to open additional files. These are great, and they're wonderful at the size that they're at. But just like any other design, right? You don't want to decrease this. This is at, we're at 1.5 inches right now, and if, let's say we wanted this A to be 1/4 of an inch, it would be a disaster to try to sew it at that size. And God's honest truth, we've seen it happen before. So there's a big difference between lettering that is an alphabet that each file has to be opened up, and then a design shop alphabet. So once again, this is a design, letter A, great at the size, maybe about, what, 15-20% down in size, 15-20% up in size. Anything more than that, and it really is not what you want to be using. And that's where the Melco Design Shop lettering that Scott's been showing you all day makes a big difference. So understand the difference between the two. One, you can use the keyboard to type it in, and it usually has a much larger size variance, suggested size variance by looking at that sheet. And then you've got these designs out there, these alphabet design packs that are individual files at the size that they're at are really good. Anything more than about 15-20% up or down are not. So just so you understand that, Scott, do you have anything to add to that?
They're just really nothing more than individual design files.
Yeah.
Right? And so it takes a lot longer to make characters and digitize them properly for the alphabets. But with these designs, is all they are, individual letter design files, the people who create them can sell them to anyone in the world because everybody can read expanded files. So that's why the price is so cheap.
Gotcha.
But try and take it, let's say I don't even know if they make small text, but let's say they had some sort of a micro type of font. How would you take Melco International and arc it, slant the letters, and make them wider, and all that, just like right off the block? Add underlay, add lock stitches, do all that kind of stuff. You can't because they're individual files.
But they do have, they serve a purpose.
They have their use, definitely.
Yep. But just understand the difference between those two. Man, Scott, we went through a lot of stuff, and we were going a little late on time, so we will go ahead and stop it at that.
All right.
Guys, really appreciate everybody being on with us. Scott, thanks for leading us through this today.
Thanks for joining me. It's been a fun one here.
Awesome. And any questions, post them even after this. And yeah, y'all have a wonderful, wonderful day.
See you soon.